There comes a quiet moment in life when you realize you have reached the end of your strength. Not dramatically, not loudly, but in a way only you can feel. You have prayed with sincerity. You have waited with patience you did not know you possessed. You have tried again and again to do the right thing, to say the right words, to keep your heart hopeful. And still, nothing seems to move. You stand after prayer a little longer than usual, hopping for a feeling, a sign, some reassurance. But the room is silent. The air feels heavy. And the same questions return. Ya Allah, did you hear me? Did I do something wrong? Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward while I remain here? You watch life continue around you. People celebrate milestones. Doors open for others. Time keeps passing, indifferent to your waiting. And inside, a quiet exhaustion settles, the kind that comes not from hardship alone, but from unanswered hope. This is not the pain of someone who never tried. This is the pain of someone who tried with sincerity. At night, your thoughts grow louder. You replay your efforts, your prayers, your intentions. You wonder if patience has an expiration date. You wonder how long faith is supposed to endure silence. And somewhere deep inside, a thought whispers not loudly, not defiantly, but gently enough to feel dangerous. Maybe this just isn't meant for me. Most people never admit this thought out loud. They carry it quietly, wrapped in guilt, afraid that even thinking it might mean a lack of faith. But this moment is more common than you think. It is the moment when effort no longer brings comfort, when understanding no longer explains the delay, when doing everything right still leads to the same closed door. You begin to notice how tightly your heart has been holding on to outcomes, holding on to timelines, holding on to the idea that if you just push a little harder, pray a little longer, understand a little more, something must change. And yet the harder you hold, the heavier everything feels. Have you noticed this before? That strange exhaustion that comes not from doing too little, but from doing too much with a heart desperate for certainty. This is often where frustration quietly disguises itself as faith, where prayer slowly turns into negotiation, where patience becomes strained, not peaceful. You may still say all the right words. You may still show strength on the outside. But inside, something is tired of carrying the weight alone. And here is the truth few people speak about. This moment is not failure. It is not rejection. And it is not the absence of Allah. It is the edge of something deeper. Because there comes a point where effort can no longer take you further, not because effort is wrong, but because it is incomplete on its own. There comes a point where the soul begins to sense that the struggle is no longer external, but internal. Not a lack of action, but a lack of rest. Not a lack of prayer, but a lack of release. You may not have the words for it yet, but your heart is approaching a quiet crossroads. A place where something must soften, where control must loosen, where the need to make things happen begins to exhaust the very faith meant to sustain you. And although it does not feel like it now, this moment, this stillness, this pause, this unanswered waiting is not empty. It is asking you a question. Not how much more can you do, but how much are you willing to trust? Because sometimes, the most important movement does not begin with action. It begins when the heart finally admits it cannot carry everything alone. And that realization, as difficult as it feels, is often where the unseen journey truly begins. In the next moment, we begin to explore why letting go does not mean losing and why trust, when it becomes sincere, changes far more than circumstances. There is a misunderstanding about trust that many people carry quietly. A belief that trusting Allah means stepping back, doing nothing, and waiting for life to magically change. But deep down, you know that is not true. You have worked. You have tried. You have made effort in ways no one else saw. And still you are here. So where does trust fit into all of this? This is where the paradox begins. The miracle does not come after you trust Allah. It comes because you trust Him. At first, this feels unsettling. Because if trust is the key, then why does it often appear at the very moment when everything feels most uncertain? The answer lies in what trust actually is. Real trust is not passive. It is not pretending you do not care. And it is not abandoning responsibility. Real trust is what happens when you have done what you can, sincerely, honestly, and you recognize the point where control no longer belongs to you. There is a subtle but powerful shift that happens in the heart at that moment. It is when the prayer changes, not in words but in weight. Instead of, "Ya Allah, make this happen," it becomes, "Ya Allah, I leave this with you." That sentence does not arrive easily. It is often spoken after exhaustion, after disappointment, after you realize that forcing clarity has only created more noise inside you. And yet when that surrender finally settles, something unexpected happens. The anxiety does not disappear all at once. The situation does not instantly resolve, but the struggle inside you begins to soften. Have you ever noticed this? That strange calm that comes not when life improves, but when resistance ends. This is not weakness. This is not giving up. This is the heart recognizing its limits and choosing alignment over control. In everyday life, you see this paradox more often than you realize. A conversation goes nowhere until you stop rehearsing your words. A solution appears only after you stop forcing one. Sleep comes when you stop trying to sleep. The same rhythm exists in faith. The more tightly the heart clings to outcomes, the heavier the weighting becomes. The more it releases, the more space is created for ease to enter, even before anything changes on the outside. This is why surrender often arrives at the breaking point. Not because Allah waits for your weakness, but because that is when the heart finally stops arguing with reality. When you say, "Ya Allah, I trust you," sincerely, not as a phrase but as a state, something unseen begins to move. Not in chaos, not dramatically, but with precision. You may not see doors opening yet. You may not feel relief immediately. But behind the silence, alignment has begun. This is where many people become confused. They assume trust should remove uncertainty. But true trust learns to live with uncertainty without fear. It does not demand answers on your timeline. It does not rush outcomes. It rests in the belief that wisdom is at work even when it is hidden. And this is where the heart begins to change its posture. No longer standing tense, waiting for proof, but leaning gently into the unknown, confident that it is held. Ask yourself quietly, what would it feel like to stop fighting the delay? What would change if you no longer treated waiting as punishment? What would happen if you trusted that silence itself had a purpose? This shift does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never meant to be yours alone. And this is the moment when trust stops being an idea and becomes a lived experience. Because when control loosens, something deeper takes its place. A sense of being guided rather than abandoned. A feeling that life is not resisting you, it is redirecting you. The Sufis understood this deeply. They spoke of surrender not as loss, but as alignment. Not as resignation, but as intimacy with the divine will. And among them, Ibn Arabi explored this truth with unusual clarity. He taught that when the heart aligns with the divine, the universe does not oppose it, it responds to it. To understand this more deeply, we must step into his perspective, not as philosophy, but as lived wisdom that speaks directly to moments like yours. Ibn Arabi did not speak about trust as an abstract idea. He spoke about it as something living, something that reshapes the way reality responds to the heart. According to his understanding, nothing in existence moves randomly. Events do not drift into your life without meaning. What appears as delay, loss, or silence is not absence, it is arrangement. But this arrangement does not begin outside you. It begins within you. Ibn Arabi taught that when the heart is divided, pulled between fear and faith, control and surrender, life reflects that division back to you. Confusion meets confusion. Resistance meets resistance. But when the heart becomes aligned, something subtle yet profound happens. Life stops pushing back. This does not mean difficulty disappears. It means difficulty no longer feels hostile. It becomes instructive, guiding, purposeful. Think of how often you interpret events through urgency. A delayed message feels like rejection. A closed door feels like failure. A quiet season feels like being forgotten. Yet Ibn Arabi invites a different way of seeing. What if the delay is not denial but timing? What if the closed door is not loss but protection? What if the silence is not absence but preparation? He believed that divine wisdom unfolds in layers, and the heart must be ready to receive what is being given. Not every blessing arrives safely at every stage of the soul. This is why alignment matters more than speed. In everyday life, you already know this truth. You do not give a responsibility to someone before they are ready. You do not harvest fruit before it has matured. You do not open a door if what lies behind it would overwhelm the one entering. Why would divine wisdom be any different? Ibn Arabi described trust as placing the heart fully into the care of the one who sees the entire path, not just the step you are standing on now. When you trust in this way, you stop demanding explanations. You stop measuring progress by visible results alone. You begin to sense guidance, even in what feels incomplete. This is where alignment begins. Not when everything makes sense, but when you allow meaning to exist beyond your understanding. The heart no longer asks, "Why is this happening to me?" It asks, "What is being shaped within me through this?" This shift is quiet, but it is powerful. You may still experience waiting. You may still encounter uncertainty, but it no longer feels empty. Because Ibn Arabi taught that divine will is not distant. It is intimate. It moves through every detail of your life, even the ones you overlook. A missed opportunity, a relationship that ends, a path that dissolves unexpectedly. These are not interruptions. They are part of a larger choreography unfolding beyond your sight. When the heart aligns with this truth, impatience begins to soften. Comparison loses its grip. Fear no longer dominates the inner dialogue. Instead, a new awareness forms. That you are not standing still. You are being positioned. That you are not forgotten. You are being prepared. And that what feels like waiting is often life adjusting itself, so that when movement comes, it arrives with clarity rather than chaos. This is the secret Ibn Arabi pointed toward. Not that trust makes life easier, but that trust makes life coherent. When the heart aligns with divine wisdom, the pieces begin to make sense, even if they do not arrive in the order you expected. To live this understanding is not to escape the world. It is to walk through it with a different inner posture. One where you no longer rush the unfolding. One where silence is not feared. One where delay is no longer wasted time. And when you begin to live this way, something changes in how you notice life itself. Ordinary moments start to feel meaningful. Small signs begin to carry weight, and the everyday experiences you once dismissed start whispering deeper truths. This is where trust moves from concept into practice, and where the signs hidden in ordinary life begin to reveal themselves. When people speak about signs, they often imagine something extraordinary. A sudden event, a dramatic turning point, a clear message that leaves no room for doubt. But the signs spoken of in the Sufi path are rarely like that. They are quiet, ordinary, so subtle that they are easy to dismiss if the heart is rushing. Delay is one of these signs. Not the delay itself, but how it begins to shape you while you are inside it. Think of the moments when nothing seems to move, waiting for a response that does not come, living through a season where effort feels invisible, facing the same problem day after day with no clear solution. From the outside, it looks like stagnation. From within, it feels like pressure. Yet Ibn Arabi taught that what feels like stillness is often adjustment. Life recalibrating. Circumstances rearranging themselves quietly, without announcement. Silence works in the same way. When answers do not arrive immediately, the mind becomes restless. It searches for meaning, for reassurance, for something solid to hold. But silence does not mean abandonment. In many cases, it means that something deeper is being formed. In everyday life, you see this pattern clearly. A relationship ends, and only later do you realize it spared you from a future you could not have carried. A job opportunity fades, and months later another path opens that fits you more honestly. An illness forces you to slow down, and in that slowing, you discover what you had been neglecting. At the time, these moments feel like loss. In hindsight, they reveal themselves as guidance. The Sufi tradition does not treat these experiences as coincidences, nor does it label them as supernatural signs. They are understood as part of a living dialogue between the heart and divine wisdom. The sign is not the event. The sign is what the event awakens within you. Patience where there was once urgency. Clarity where there was confusion. Humility where there was certainty. Have you noticed how delay often exposes what you are most attached to? How silence reveals what you are afraid to lose? How waiting teaches you what you truly rely on? These are not accidents. Ibn Arabi described divine wisdom as something that teaches through experience rather than explanation. It does not argue with the mind. It shapes the heart. This is why everyday life becomes the classroom. The long pause between prayers and answers. The repeated lesson that control does not guarantee peace. The slow realization that trust is not proven in ease, but in uncertainty. None of this requires dramatic belief. It requires attention. Attention to how your reactions change over time. To how fear loosens its grip. To how gratitude appears even before outcomes improve. These internal shifts are signs, not pointing outward but inward. They tell you that alignment is happening quietly. That even if nothing around you has changed yet, something within you has. And this is often where people miss the message. They wait for life to transform before allowing the heart to rest. But the Sufi path suggests the opposite. Rest comes first. Alignment comes first. And life follows. When you begin to see delay and silence through this lens, waiting no longer feels empty. It becomes meaningful, intentional. You stop asking when things will change and start noticing how you are changing while you wait. This awareness prepares you for a deeper understanding, one that has been echoed through sacred stories across time. Stories that reveal a consistent pattern hidden beneath hardship. To see it clearly, we must look at how trials have always preceded elevation, and why what feels like descent is often the beginning of rise. When hardship stretches longer than expected, the heart begins to ask questions that feel heavy. Not questions of curiosity, but questions of survival. Why this? Why now? Why does it feel like everything is being taken instead of given? These questions are not signs of weak faith. They are signs that the soul is standing at the edge of something it does not yet understand. The Sufi path has always pointed to a quiet truth. Elevation is rarely announced in advance. It arrives disguised, often as delay, often as loss, often as a season where nothing seems to make sense. One of the clearest reflections of this pattern appears in the story of Prophet Yusuf. From the outside, his life looks like a sequence of misfortunes. Betrayal by those closest to him, abandonment, years of confinement with no clear explanation. From within the prison, there was no visible sign of destiny unfolding. Only waiting, only patience, only trust in the unseen. At no point did Yusuf know how the story would end. There was no promise whispered to him that relief was near. There was only the choice to remain faithful in a place where faith seemed to offer no immediate reward. And yet, every stage that looked like descent was quietly shaping capacity. The well was not punishment. It removed him from harm he could not yet see. The prison was not delay. It was preparation for a responsibility that required depth, restraint, and wisdom. This is not unique to prophets. It is a pattern repeated in ordinary lives every day. You lose something you thought defined you. You are placed in a situation you never asked for. Your plans unravel without explanation. At the time, it feels like life is undoing you. But Ibn Arabi taught that divine wisdom often hides expansion within contraction. What feels like loss is frequently space being created. What feels like humiliation is often humility being taught before elevation. The heart resists this truth because it wants clarity before trust. But the path of trust asks for the opposite: to remain steady without knowing, to stay open without guarantees, to keep the heart soft while circumstances feel harsh. This is where many people grow bitter. They curse the delay. They resent the silence. They harden themselves against disappointment. But the Sufi tradition offers another possibility. What if the very place you want to escape is shaping something essential within you? What if the season you resent is strengthening the part of you that will later be required? What if the delay is not denying you, but preparing you to carry what is coming? Ibn Arabi described trials as invitations rather than punishments. An invitation for the heart to deepen its reliance. An opening for trust to move beyond words and into lived reality. This does not make the pain disappear, but it gives it direction. Instead of asking, "How do I get out of this?" the heart begins to ask, "What is being formed through this?" This shift changes everything. Because once you stop fighting the experience, you begin to learn from it. Once you stop resisting the descent, you begin to notice the strength it is building. And slowly, often without realization, the heart becomes capable of holding what it once could not. This is why trials often come before ease. Not because ease is being withheld, but because the soul is being prepared. And when that preparation reaches its fullness, elevation no longer overwhelms, it fits. To understand how this preparation reshapes not just circumstances, but the inner world itself, we must look inward. Because the most profound change in this journey does not happen when the situation improves. It happens when the heart itself begins to shift. There is a moment in this journey that is easy to miss, because nothing on the outside announces it. Life does not suddenly improve. Circumstances do not immediately change. Yet something inside you begins to feel different. not lighter in a dramatic way, but quieter. The questions that once pressed against your chest no longer demand constant answers. The fear that once rushed your thoughts begins to slow. And without realizing it, you stop bracing yourself against life. This is the inner shift. It begins when the heart stops arguing with what is. When prayer no longer sounds like urgency, but like presence. When you stop asking for the pain to disappear and start asking for meaning to be revealed through it. This is not resignation. It is clarity. You may still hope. You may still desire change. But the desperation softens. Ibn Arabi taught that the heart finds peace not when it controls outcomes, but when it aligns with divine wisdom. When resistance ends, flow begins. You start to notice small changes in how you respond. A delay that once triggered anxiety now invites patience. A disappointment that once felt personal now feels instructive. A future that once felt frightening now feels held. These are not imagined comforts. They are real lived shifts that occur when trust moves from theory into the body. Your prayers begin to sound different. Not louder, not longer, but more honest. Instead of "Ya Allah, change this," you find yourself saying, "Ya Allah, guide me through this." That single shift changes everything, because it places the heart in partnership with divine wisdom rather than opposition to it. You stop measuring progress only by visible outcomes. You begin to notice inner signs instead. The way your heart recovers faster from disappointment. The way gratitude appears even when nothing has been resolved. The way fear no longer dominates your decisions. Ibn Arabi described this as the heart returning to its natural state, one of trust. A state where the soul recognizes that it is not abandoned, even when it is tested. This does not mean difficulty disappears, but difficulty loses its power to define you. You begin to realize that peace is not postponed until life becomes easier. Peace becomes possible now, within the unfolding. This is why the Sufis did not chase miracles. They chased alignment. Because once the heart is aligned, whatever arrives can be received without breaking it. And this is the quiet truth many overlook. Allah often changes the heart before changing the situation. Because without that inner change, even a miracle can feel heavy. But when the heart has softened, expanded, and learned to trust, relief arrives naturally. Not as shock, but as recognition. This is the point where waiting no longer feels like punishment. It feels purposeful. And when the heart reaches this state, something begins to shift beyond the inner world. Life itself starts to respond differently. Not through force, not through struggle, but through ease. To understand how this ease appears, and why miracles often arrive quietly rather than dramatically, we must look at what happens when alignment finally meets timing. That is where the unseen begins to step into view. When the miracle finally arrives, it rarely announces itself. There is no sudden noise, no dramatic moment where everything changes at once. In fact, you may not even recognize it at first. Something small shifts. A conversation feels easier than it once did. A burden that lived in your chest no longer weighs as heavily. A door you stopped knocking on opens without force. And only later do you realize this is it. This is what all that waiting was preparing you for. The Sufi path has always described miracles as moments of harmony rather than interruption. Not something that breaks the flow of life, but something that restores it. When the heart aligns, life responds with ease. What once required constant effort now unfolds naturally. What once felt blocked begins to move. What once demanded struggle now arrives without resistance. This does not mean challenges disappear. It means they no longer feel like obstacles standing against you. Ibn Arabi taught that when the heart stops resisting divine will, creation itself becomes cooperative. Not because the world has changed, but because your relationship with it has. Think about how often relief comes in forms you did not expect. Not always as the outcome you prayed for, but as the strength to walk away from what was harming you, as clarity that reveals a better path, as peace that makes an old pain lose its grip. Sometimes the miracle is an open door. Sometimes it is the courage to close one. Sometimes it is healing of the body. Sometimes it is healing of the heart. And sometimes it is simply the realization that you are no longer afraid. This is why miracles often feel quiet. They arrive when the heart is ready to receive them without panic, pride, or confusion. They fit naturally into the life that has been prepared for them. Looking back, you begin to see how precisely everything was arranged. The delays that once frustrated you protected you. The people who left created space. The silence taught you how to listen. Nothing was wasted. Not the waiting, not the tears, not the moments you thought would break you. Each one shaped the inner posture required for ease to arrive without overwhelming you. This is why divine timing does not rush. It aligns. And when alignment is complete, movement becomes effortless. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop negotiating with fear. You begin to move with life rather than against it. This is the miracle Ibn Arabi pointed toward. Not a sudden change of circumstance, but a seamless unfolding. A moment where life begins to feel coherent again. Where trust is no longer tested, it is confirmed. And as this quiet miracle settles into your life, a deeper realization begins to form. That the greatest transformation was never external. It was the one that happened within you. To understand this fully, we must arrive at the final insight, the hidden Sufi secret that reframes everything you thought you were waiting for. There comes a moment when the heart finally understands something it could not grasp before. Not through explanation, not through effort, but through lived experience. It was never only about the answer you were waiting for. It was never only about the door you hoped would open. It was never only about the relief you longed to feel. It was about what the journey was shaping within you. Ibn Arabi hinted at this truth again and again, that the greatest transformation does not happen when circumstances change, but when perception does. When the heart stops seeing separation. When it stops measuring life by gain and loss. When it recognizes the one behind every movement, every pause, every unfolding. This is the hidden Sufi secret. That the miracle is not something you receive at the end of patience. The miracle is the heart you become through patience. When trust matures, fear no longer controls your inner world. When surrender deepens, outcomes lose their power over your peace. When reliance becomes sincere, even uncertainty feels held. You begin to notice that the same life that once felt heavy now feels meaningful. The same world that once confused you now teaches you. The same delays that once frustrated you now appear precise. Nothing outside may look extraordinary to others, but inside everything has changed. You no longer rush time. You no longer beg what has passed to return. You no longer fear what has not arrived yet. Because the heart has found its place. Ibn Arabi wrote that when the heart aligns with divine will, the universe aligns with the heart. Not because reality bends to desire, but because desire dissolves into trust. This is why true faith feels calm. It does not shout. It does not demand. It rests. You still act. You still pray. You still live fully. But you no longer cling. And in that release, life begins to open in ways effort alone could never achieve. The delays now make sense. The silence now feels full. The waiting now feels purposeful. You see clearly that nothing was wasted. Every tear softened the heart. Every unanswered prayer refined intention. Every moment of uncertainty deepened reliance. The miracle you thought you were waiting for was not postponed. It was unfolding quietly, shaping you into someone who could receive whatever came next without losing yourself. This is why the Sufis did not chase signs in the sky. They listened to what was happening within. Because the greatest sign of divine mercy is a heart that trusts without fear. So if you find yourself standing in silence today, know this. You are not being ignored. You are being guided. If you feel something inside you softening, a strange calm, a quiet clarity, a surrender that does not feel like defeat, that is not the end of the journey. That is the beginning of the miracle. Because when you fully trust Allah, life does not simply change around you. You change. And through that change, everything begins to find its place. Have you ever noticed a moment in your own life where trust quietly changed everything, even before the situation did? If this reflection resonated with you, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to Voice of Sufism, and turn on the bell so you don't miss future stories of wisdom and reflection. Feel free to share your experience in the comments. Your story may help someone else recognize a sign they're living through right now. And if you'd like to continue this journey, explore the related videos appearing on your screen. Until next time, walk gently, trust deeply, and stay aware.